On this podcast, I talk with the chair of the executive board of the Manistee County Democrats, John Helge, and it was a really good conversation. John had approached me a little while ago, mentioned, hey, he'd love to be on the podcast, and I did have him on a short list of people that I did want to eventually have on, so when he approached me, I was like, let's go ahead and get this scheduled. And through some correspondence, I had asked him what he wanted to talk about. And he said he wants to talk about what it means to be a Democrat. And I don't pick sides on this podcast. I try to do my best to ask questions I'm curious about and have individuals on the podcast that I think can bring me a little more knowledge, maybe change a viewpoint or two, just help me kind of grow as a human. I love having conversations with people, and I'm sure that there's a segment of my audience that is going to be upset that I had John on because of his party affiliation, but I think he's a super good dude. And some of the things that he says on the podcast, they really, they're more focused on bringing people together than separating people, if that makes sense. I do have a handout to the local GOP, the Republican Party here in Manistee County, hoping to get a representative on from them to kind of give a little bit of a counterpoint, but I'm still in the waiting place with that. So we'll see what happens after this podcast with John goes live, and hopefully that will help, kind of move the needle with the GOP, and we'll get a representative on from there, and like I said, get that counterpoint. But I want to be very clear that on this podcast, I'm not a side taker. I want to get to know the person I'm interviewing, and I want to learn from them, learn about them, and have an engaging conversation. I did bring up some things that I think were probably a little bit uncomfortable, but it's important because it's not a one-sided podcast, and I think John did a really good job, and a really interesting guy, and I think he's doing some good things. So I'll leave it at that. You can let me know in the comments what you think, but full disclosure, I'm probably not going to read them, but do your best, or worst. So let's get to paying the bills and then get on to the podcast. Thank you. What's up, guys? Welcome to the James Boudreau Podcast, where I sit down with people from all walks of life to talk about their stories, experiences, and ideas. This podcast is brought to you by Watson Motors, the official studio sponsor. If you're in need of a Jeep, Ram, or Dodge, or whatever, these guys have you covered with great deals and even better service. So hit them up in Manistee, Benzie, or Ludington, or check them out online at watsonmotors.com. Listen, support the people that support the show. Now let's get into it. You can move that mic any way you want. Make yourself comfortable.
I'm pretty loud anyhow, no matter what.
Get a couple of deals going here. I appreciate you coming on.
Hey, Jim, this is my pleasure. My pleasure to be here with you. I've admired your work and just really happy to be here and be able to talk to you.
You've been on my list for a while, and then when you mentioned it at the coffee shop a couple weeks ago, I was like, yeah, well, let's make that happen. Sometimes I get a little funny with asking people because I don't know how comfortable or not comfortable they are, and I don't want to put them in a position where they're like, yeah, I'll come on, but they don't want to. You know what I mean? It's a safe space.
It is, and you're talking to a guy here. Jim, I had a 40-year career leading sales teams, so
I've got a bunch of notes.
Speaking to the public, not a problem to me.
I know that when we initially started talking, we exchanged some emails. You said you wanted to come on and talk about what it means to be a Democrat, and I do want to get into that.
Sure.
But thanks to the power of the internet, LinkedIn is a powerful tool, and I don't typically do a bunch of research, but like I said, when I had you on the list as somebody that I did definitely wanted to come on and talk to, you do so much, and you're super involved in the community. And I was like, there's more to this story than just what people see here in Manistee County. So, again, thanks to LinkedIn, you tell a pretty good story of your life briefly in a few paragraphs. And if I could just kind of go through this real quick, because I'd like to touch on some of these things. I think they're super interesting, and I think it's really going to help my listeners and viewers really get to know who John Helge is. So, I guess to start, without going into like when you were a little boy, Upper Sandusky High School, Sandusky, Ohio, you played football, band, choir, and theater. So we're already starting off with somebody who's got a full plate. You left high school, and if I missed something, please let me know. You left high school, graduated from high school, and went to Michigan Tech. And then, folks, and then at Michigan Tech, you were a 3-year starter on the offensive line for the football team, in which you say you only lost 4 games in 4 years. I didn't check on that, though. You were the president of the Blue Key Honor Fraternity, which was responsible for planning and executing the world-renowned Michigan Tech Winter Carnival. And the Michigan Tech stuff is really interesting to me because one of my really close friends, Dylan Walker, is a graduate from Michigan Tech, and he's always like, when you're talking to John, you got to bring up Michigan Tech, because Dylan was very much immersed in the college experience for sure. He wasn't an athlete there, but he definitely partook in all of everything that campus life had to offer. You were the president of Kappa Delta Psi. Social fraternity, and the vice president of the Michigan Tech Varsity Club, and a 1976 honor graduate of the Army ROTC department, and 1976 outstanding senior for the School of Forestry. And then, and I quote, you say, I was very busy while at MTU. Then you leave MTU and you begin a 40-year career at Nalco Water.
And Nalco, but before that, Jim, my ROTC commitment, they paid for college. They paid for everything.
This episode is brought to you by Brandon Ball, broker-owner of Dwelling Realty, Keller Williams, Northern Michigan. Are you looking to sell your home? Then look no further. When you list your home with Brandon Ball, you'll get a trusted advisor who will guide you through the entire selling process. With extensive knowledge of the local market, he'll help price your home competitively to attract the right buyers. And with proven marketed strategies, your home will be seen by the most qualified of buyers. With 17 years in the business, you'll have someone experienced who's on your side. Contact Brandon today to get started selling your home. 231-690-4981. That's 231-690-4981. Or Brandon at dwellingrealty.com.
And I had 4 years. At the end of 4 years, at that time, if I had a degree in my hand, I went in as a second lieutenant. If I did not have a degree, they took me in as a buck private. So I had incentive to get that degree in 4 years, but it was a challenge. I originally started off wanting to be a chemical engineer, and I just could not handle differential equations, which is calculus on steroids.
Yeah.
And so I went to my advisor and I said, I got to graduate in May of '76. How do I do that? And he said, well, go up and talk to the dean of the School of Forestry. He likes football players, and he'll be able to help you. I went in, and the dean sat down, and as I walked into his office, he looked at me and he pointed his finger and said, you're number 52, aren't you? I said, yeah. He said, great game Saturday. I said, thank you very much. Now can you help me get a degree? And he looked at my transcript and he said, oh, heck yeah, you're doing fine in everything except this, differential equations, you'll never use it in life. And he was right. But bottom line is I graduated, and then I did 4 years in the U.S. Army. I was in the artillery and served in Germany, right on the Czechoslovakian border at that time. And it was a good experience, but the post-Vietnam Army was not something I wanted to make the rest of my life.
Sure.
And so
I can imagine. Yeah, I didn't see that footnote in your LinkedIn. That's one thing I was gonna bring up is, did you continue after ROTC? Did you go in?
Yep.
So, was it the only place you were at aside of training was in Germany?
That's right. And then I had to resign my commission because I had a regular Army commission, the same as a West Pointer. As the honor grad from an ROTC department, you have that option. And so I had to resign my commission. I owed 10 years then of inactive reserve. And then, that interesting, Jim, and that ended in August of 1990. And what happened later in August of 1990 was when Kuwait happened, the first Gulf War. And I had several of my friends that I'm still in contact with in the Army that, had significant leadership roles at that time in that conflict. So
I remember it very well. And then the next time we went, and then the next time we went. But, so what made you pick Michigan Tech, going from Sandusky? So is that where you were born and raised, is Sandusky, Ohio?
No, I'm a Yooper.
Okay.
My dad is a mining engineer. My dad graduated from Michigan Tech. And we lived everywhere. People say, where'd you live in the UP? I said, I lived everywhere with iron in the name. Because my dad was a mining engineer, and sadly, though, his job was closing the mines. So we'd move about every 2 years to another, in the UP and also over to Minnesota on what they call the Minnesota Iron Range, which is up in northern Minnesota. And we'd move back and forth. And finally, in 1968, he did his job. He closed all the mines and went to Ohio and got a job mining limestone in northwestern Ohio. And he ended up having a great career there. He was the vice president of operations for a 9-quarry operation. And so again, I went to high school there, but I just went right back to Michigan Tech because I knew that's where I wanted to go.
So you graduate from Michigan Tech, you do 4 years in the Army. So that puts you right at when you started at Nalco. Now, talk to me about that, because I Googled it. I went to their website. I'm not going to do it right. It has a lot to do with water.
Yep.
Okay.
As you can see.
Yeah. Still representing.
Still representing it. It's a great company. And again, I was very fortunate. In mid-1980, what happened there was it was a recession. You talk about inflation. You know what the inflation rate was in 1980?
I can tell you, first of all, I was born in 1978.
Yeah.
And I vividly remember my parents talking about the interest rate that they had on the first home that they purchased.
Yep.
And it was like something crazy, like almost 20%.
Yep. It was. And so, it wasn't easy to find a job. But two things came together for my benefit. First of all, they were looking for junior military officers who were, getting out of the Army. And second of all, my degree from Michigan Tech. And the other thing that happened, the third thing that brought it all together, the third leg of that stool, was in April of 1980, between Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and Corpus Christi, Texas, right on the Gulf Coast, which if you've ever been down there is nothing but one big petrochemical refining operation.
Okay.
Along Interstate 10. Nalco had 50 of their best field salesmen quit and all went to work for a competitor. Atlantic Richfield, ARCO, thought they wanted to get into the water treatment business, so they bought 50 of our best people. So they were desperate for people in Louisiana and East Texas. So I got hired, even though I will tell you my interview with Nalco wasn't my strong point. I walked into the interviewer's office and he was turned working on his credenza behind his desk, and I knocked on the door and no response. I knocked again, and finally I said, hello. And he turned around and he says, you are one ugly SOB. Now, I'd been trained well by the headhunter group that was handling me, and I knew that I was supposed to respond in kind. And I said, well, you're no feast for the eyes either. And he goes, where'd you get that tie? I said, my wife bought this tie. You have a problem with that? And it started from there. But bottom line is, he gave me a job offer with a dollar figure that I never thought I'd see. And I didn't hear exactly where the offer was. And he said, well, what do you think? You're going to take the job? I said, no. Is this the one in Alpena, Michigan, which I was hoping for? I knew there was an opening in Alpena. He said, no, this is the one in Louisiana, Lake Charles, Louisiana. I said, oh, well, I'm going to have to talk to my wife. So I called her and I told her the salary they were going to start us at, and she's doing her happy dance on the other end of the phone. And is it the job in Alpena? I said, no, it's in Louisiana, Lake Charles, Louisiana. And it was just dead silent on the other end. I said, are you all right with that? She goes, we're not going to live in a house on stilts, are we? I said, no, but it was 5 of the longest years of our lives, Jim, that we spent there. But a great place to learn my craft. I learned how to work in every type of chemical process, refining and chemical process, petrochemical process that there is. A wonderful place. And I had everything from a nuclear power plant to a little cooling tower on the top of a bank building downtown that were, I learned the trade very well. And then we moved up to Minneapolis, and I ran the operations for Nalco in Minnesota, North and South Dakota, and part of Montana. So I was a road warrior there, but that's where our 2 daughters came to us from. We adopted them from Korea. They came to us as babies. They're delivered right to the airport in Minneapolis. And today they're out doing their thing. They're 38 and 34 years old, and grew up right here, though, in Manistee. And I can't say enough about the Manistee school system. They both prospered here.
Very good. Funny you said North Dakota. My first base in the Air Force was Minot.
Why not?
Reason's the reason. I've said that plenty of times on the podcast. People are getting sick of it. But I can remember standing in guard mount when they're passing out orders to where your first base is going to be. And, I had my dream sheet, and it was all nice climate areas. And I did put worldwide remote because I was like, if I'm going to go someplace, send me overseas somewhere. And finally got to my name, my drill instructor just started laughing. Yep. He was like, yeah, well, you're going to Minot, dude.
You know what they say about Minot? They say there's nothing between you and the North Pole but a strand of barbed wire.
I mean, it's cold. It's very cold. There's no trees there. It's just wild. And what's even more wild is you spent 40 years with one company.
Yeah.
I mean, was it just that good of a company, or did you just really love the work that you were doing, or both?
A combination of both, Jim. I tell young people now when they ask me any question, I say, please try to find a company that values its employees more than its products, values people more than products. Nalco's like that. Because our clients we work with, they could have bought the chemicals that we sold anywhere, and they could have bought them for less. But they were buying the value that we added to the relationship. We would go in and help them operate using less water, which means less chemical, which means less energy, and reduce their, bottom line costs, their total cost of operation. And we were all trained how to do that, how to document our value, and spent a lot of time, in very positive ways. My last 15 years with Nalco, I managed our relationship with Nestle on a worldwide basis, the largest food company in the world. And Nestle gets a lot of bad press, there's no doubt. When you're the largest in the world, you're always going to have somebody.
Heavy's the crown.
Yeah. But I will tell you this, my work with them at the highest levels and all the way down, they were really focused on, becoming more sustainable, using less water, using less energy. They, you talk about plastics and you talk about packaging.
Yeah.
They aren't waiting for a packaging company to figure something out. They've got their own packaging research group. And are you familiar with Nespresso? Mm-hmm. The little capsules? Well, when you buy those, they send it with a envelope. You're supposed to send the empty capsules back. Those are made of aluminum. And those are recycled. And if you go to a Nespresso store, especially in Europe, they have, in the window, they have a bicycle.
Made out of it?
Made out of that aluminum that's being recycled. And so they're really looking at getting rid of single-use packaging, that type of thing. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes in the world. And the other thing that they totally got rid of all of their bottled water business in North America. They sold it off because 2 reasons. Number 1, most businesses, it wasn't profitable enough. Number 2, it was a real drag on their public relations.
Sure.
Okay? It's just not right. And they realized that. And so they're out of that business. The other business they got out of, believe it or not, is candy, chocolate in the United States. Remember they used to have the Nestle's Crunch Bar?
Yeah.
You'll see now, you buy a Crunch Bar now, it doesn't have Nestle on it. It's owned by Ferrero, which is a Italian company. But it didn't fit their criteria, for becoming a nutrition-based company. But you got to give them a lot of credit.
Yeah, that's
you
interesting.
You can't walk down an aisle in a grocery store without running into a Nestle product.
Yeah, that's 100% true. My wife, actually, it's funny that you bring up Nestle. She got a food science degree from Michigan State, and her first job was working for Nestle, I think, in Cleveland. Then she went back and got her master's degree in accounting, and she's a CPA now. But yeah, she said she was like, for the whole process from animal products all the way up to the heat up dinners and trying to figure out ways to make them more healthy or to maybe even so much as what can we do with this particular food item to save some money. Super interesting stuff. Probably a little over my head, but she's super intelligent, and she is.
I think we're both fortunate that we married well.
Oh, dude, I'm hitting at the top of the lineup, and I know people are like, there's no way that guy can have her, because if it wasn't for Betsy, I wouldn't be able to do half the shit that I do. That's 100% true.
Yeah, amen.
So let's get into and I don't want to use the wrong language with this. I don't know if it's more of a passion or like, how did you really develop this strong desire to be politically involved?
Ooh.
Like, where's that? The funny thing for me is I brought this up before. When I really started, and I don't like really, this is an uncomfortable conversation. I don't like talking about politics because I feel like but it's like the seminal moment for me when I was like, these kind of things kind of matter. And I'd be interested to hear your opinion on this too. But when I was young, I had a little black and white TV in my bedroom, and I can remember watching Ronald Reagan at the Berlin Wall. Mm-hmm. And I was like 11, 10, but it was kind of like I knew all of a sudden at that moment that I was watching some history, and then this is our president, and it was like I've never forgot it. Mm-hmm. Regardless of party affiliation, that moment right there was like, oh, this is something that's like kind of important, and he's telling another guy, you can't do this. Gorbachev, like, tear down this wall. And like that cultural movement over there, which I still have visions in my head of the graffiti and people hammering the wall to take it down. And I'm like, wow, some shit stays the same and some never changes. Yeah. There's this cycle of cultural change that happens. Sometimes it feels annually, but there's these big moments that happen politically and culturally, and they're way more amplified now because of our connection to each other, which is super easy with phones or computers or whatever.
And podcasts.
we can connect quicker. Yep. And sometimes it always seems like it just happens like way too fast, and like you can't like brace yourself for it, and then there's no time to really digest it because the next thing is happening. But I'm gonna digress from that. Basically, that was my moment when I was like, wow, there's some important shit here.
Yeah. My journey, and it was a journey because I've been through it all. Growing up in the UP, my grandfathers, both of them worked in the mines. They were miner. They belonged to the union. The union made their work safer. The union helped them have the beginnings of a middle-class lifestyle. The union helped. My father was the first in the family to ever go to college. Of course, he also had help from the GI Bill because he graduated from high school in May of 1945 and enlisted the next day and was in basic training when Truman dropped the bombs on Japan. And my father was as big as I am, he would have been a great target, he used to say. You're lucky, kid, because I'd have been one of the first ones to go down if we had to go on the beaches in Japan. But, that's one aspect of it. But then the other aspect is my father was management and did the negotiations with the unions. And these were difficult negotiations because the lines were closing. And he was the one that, had to deliver that message. But my dad told me something that I've held for the rest of my life. He said, John, management gets the union it deserves. And my father was always up front. My father was very transparent, very open. And when he went to Ohio, he continued in his positions as the chief negotiator with the United Mine Workers Union, which again, he succeeded there in having a good relationship. In fact, it was so good, when he retired, the Mine Workers Union gave him a golf cart that he put in the back of his pickup truck and continued to play golf with, and some of his biggest golfing partners were the union executives and the union guys from the mines. But he also was very conservative, and you remember during the Vietnam War era, all the protests that were going on, my dad was one of they called the hard hats, which were the conservative, the silent majority. And I was in that too, because in 1971, the height of the Vietnam War protests, I had short hair.
Yeah.
I was going to go in the Army. I was going to make the Army a career. I knew what I wanted to do. And, I think the other things that happened is you get in the Army and you see that it wasn't a good fit for me. I watched other leaders in the Army that were just god-awful, to be truthful.
Sure.
They were post-Vietnam, and the best people had left the Army. And the people that were leading me, I lost a lot of respect for. And I said, I don't think I can do this for the next 20, 30 years. And that's one thing I was looking for. I was looking for leaders that gave a damn about the people, that cared about, the people that they're working with and for. And I was fortunate because Nalco, has a company I decided to stay with for 4 years, had that kind of a culture. People over products. Care about the people. And as a leader of teams, I got to know my people, got to know their families, got to know their challenges, what that was. And so they just naturally led. When I retired in July of 2020, the first week of August, I get a phone call from Peggy Raditz. I don't know if you know Peggy. She's a force of nature. And she goes, are you bored yet? And my response was, well, I can't play golf every day. And she goes, well, I've got a perfect job for you. We need help organizing, the Democratic Party here in Manistee County. And I said, whoa, let me think about that. Let me look at it. And I did some research, and there was a good foundation there. There really was. Good, solid foundation that could be built upon. And so I said, okay, but I need to do it my way. And my way is, just basically making sure that I'm connecting with the people. I'm making sure that we have a vision where we want to be, and then how are we going to get there? There are 4 questions I ask about everything. Where are we now? Mm-hmm. Where do we want to be? How are we going to get there? And how will we know when we've arrived? And that's something that I learned in business, but has come right out into, organizing, volunteers. And that's certainly a challenge, but it's one that I've enjoyed. It's working with volunteers is a whole lot different than working for somebody who, I hold their salary, their bonus, their promotion potential in my hands. But it's been very rewarding, and I think we've done a good job of building the organization here in Manistee County. So that's I hope I'm answering your question.
Yeah, you nailed it. Is there before we get into what it means to be a Democrat, one of the questions I had was, who's your president? Not who is the president for you. That's like this is the president that that you admire most. You think, like, who's your favorite? I guess is the question.
Wow.
I know it could be a tough question, but yeah, I don't know if like I have a favorite. I have only been voting for 20 years, but looking back or whatever, I mean, it could be still alive or not.
Yeah. I mean, full disclosure, I voted for Reagan. Okay, and then I got married. No, but I voted for Ford in 1976, and I did vote for, I voted for Reagan in 1980, and but I think if you look at who I admire, they're all human, first and foremost, and being human, you're not perfect.
Correct.
And everybody's got their positives and their negatives. And you really look at, how people have handled adversity, how people handle adversity. And I've got to give Joe Biden a lot of credit. He came out of this terrible pandemic. We're celebrating 5 years. It was 5 years ago yesterday that everything just came to a screeching halt. Screeching halt because I was driving on my way to Florida to play some golf, and on my way to Ohio to see my mother in an assisted living center. And my sister called and said, "You can't get in." And then my phone rang about 5 minutes later. It's my wife going, "Turn around, come back, everything's shutting down." So we've got this pandemic, and leading us out of that, I think he did as fine a job as could be done in his administration. And again, I think they've done as good as possibly could be done. And some of the work that they did, with the Infrastructure Act, I think that's really important. Our infrastructure is crumbling around us. If we don't take action, and we're taking action now to improve it. The CHIPS and Science Act, bringing that part of the very important, the whole supply chain back to the United States is critical and important. And then last but not least, the money that was allocated for environmental improvements, I think is key. We've just got to do it. We've got to prime the pump and get things going. And so if I were asked, I think I'm going to select Joe Biden on the way he handled adversity.
I got to tell you, I'm surprised. Only because, I get the COVID time. I'm trying not to swear. Kid show today. That was some wild shit. Yep. And I would have pegged you for a different president. Not to say that that's a bad choice. I understand. Yeah. But I was thinking more that you would say, I really like Jimmy Carter, But no, I get it. And, to speak about presidents, the one thing I do miss, I miss the Ronald Reagans. I miss the statesman, like, the Kennedys. I was never a part of that, but just the back and forth between parties, to me, as a very, very young 47-year-old, when you watch even like Mitt Romney, Barack Obama, those debates, that's the kind of shit that I think the American people want to see.
Absolutely. The sad thing, though,
the back and forth stuff is just ridiculous.
And the sad part about it is the Republican Party of Mitt Romney, of Jerry Ford, of Bill Milliken, Michigan governor, they're gone. It's gone. And that capability to work with each other and get things done for the greater good of the people, That's the problem that we have right now. You know,
Do you think that the Democrat Party is not also a little?
absolutely. You know, I'm not sitting here going,
Yeah, no, I get it.
no, you know, but the challenge is, it's just like what's going on right now today in Washington. You've got the House of Representatives has abdicated their responsibility, you know, to the power of the purse. They've abdicated that. They've abdicated their responsibility to legislate, to do the hard work, the sausage making of legislation. It's ugly.
It looks ugly.
Okay? But it needs to be done. Okay? The last 2 years, you know, there hasn't been any meaningful legislation passed at all, other than to keep the government operating. Keeping a government operating that's not doing anything moving us forward. Okay, so, and I lay the blame squarely on the House of Representatives and the Senate, because they just, you know, refuse to work together. And,
Yeah,
you know, and
which
that's just plain wrong.
Which is a huge issue in the division in the country.
Yeah.
Because if you pick a side, if you pick a side loudly, you're definitely ostracized. And I don't care what side of the side you're on. And so I think that there is to your words, a silent, I won't say majority, but I say a silent majority on both sides that are just keeping everything as bottled up as possible. You know, I read something the other day that I was a little kind of like somebody wrote, it was in an article or it was a comment somewhere about how you're hiding if you're living the way that your parents lived politically, where you just don't talk about politics and religion. And I'm cut from that ilk. Like, I don't particularly enjoy having conversations about politics because, number one, I'm not educated enough around certain people I don't want to get into a debate that I can't debate. Does that make sense? And I know enough to get in trouble. And I don't want to do that because, you know, the way I look at it, and it's really hard in a two-party system, is that, you know, this is a human thing, and we're not doing a good job politically to focus on, like, the human aspect of everything.
Right.
I know that there are on both sides that are like, oh, if we do this, and I'm on board. I am Team America. Like, I don't particularly give a shit which team, as long as the teams are working together. Right. And I think that really is what is. People feel like they're forced to pick a team, and it's not fair to the everyday person, to the person that I might get a little heat for this, and I've seen this before, where it's like, when I wake up in the morning, the first things I'm thinking about are what is underneath my roof. My kids, my wife, my family, you know, and I'm very blessed and fortunate, okay? So there's a lot of things that I'm able to do that most people can't do, and I completely get that. But I would say that most people, when they wake up in the morning, they're concerned about the same things I am, and they're also concerned about a mortgage payment, a truck payment, getting to work on time, how stable is that job, you know, is there a way I can work more, get a better job? Everything is the American, that is everybody in the world. Yep. At a certain level, it varies up and down, and then they have to think about a team or what's going to happen. And I know that at a certain level, you have to be invested in it. I tend to invest way more locally, because I really think that if you can lift up the political sphere locally and have something really positive growing here or wherever you live, that then bleeds into, let's say, the rest of the state and then the federal government, hopefully, because that's like, when you do grassroots things and you bring in state representatives, congresspeople, senators, you have their ear, I think it kind of branches from there. But to put somebody and say, hey, listen, you got to think about all this other shit, plus everything that's going on overseas, it's a little cumbersome.
Absolutely. And, that is America. You represent the majority of the people in America, what you just said. And politics should not be like, I'm a diehard Packer fan, okay? You cut me, I bleed green and gold. But I respect the heck out of the Lions fans, okay? And I hope they just bear with me. I don't. But people ask me, I'm a Lions fan, or I'm a Packer fan, have been all my life, and I'm proud of being a Packer fan. I respect the fact that you're proud of being a Lions fan, or whatever team. But politics doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be a team. You don't have to be, like as crazy about the Packers as I do. You don't have to be as crazy about the Democrats or the Republicans as I am. I think that what the regular people in this world, you need to know that your representative government, which starts right here, city council, township township trustees, on up to our county commissioners, you need to know that they are working in your best interest. They're working for your benefit, not for their power, not for their own aggrandizement. They're working for you. And that's, I think, why it's important to be as engaged as you can be in politics. And I support you 100%. Local, all politics is local. And that's important. And I just cringe when, I hear people say, I don't like politics. I understand. And my guidance to you, Jim, is don't debate. Don't get into a debate. Have a curious conversation, just like you have now. Ask questions. I'm interested to know more about your thoughts on that. You obviously have an opinion. Would you please share with me a little bit more about that, how you came about that opinion? And have open and honest, curious conversations with people. And I think we'll find that we have more in common than we have in conflict. And that's really my approach.
I would 100% agree with you on that.
Yeah.
There's way more in common than there is in conflict, for sure. And I think what happens, to come all the way back to how people communicate today, it's singular issues that are propagandized and pushed over and over and over and over and over and over again, and that if you're cool with all this, this is a problem, right? And that's this one problem or one issues is what's dividing everybody. Because I do firmly believe that on both sides. I guarantee. This is where I should have brought my tinfoil, but like. You've been in this a lot longer than I have, but I know that the parties talk to each other. They do. It might not be on TV because, heaven forbid, you see, two people really having a candid conversation that are on one side of each line of the line, but finding a way together to just let's come out and do a press conference together and say, you know what? You're right, and then they say, you're right too on all this. Let's fix this little shit right here, and then everybody's going to be happy. Because I feel like we're constantly chasing the next election.
Yeah. Oh,
on both sides.
Amen.
And I think it's the hardest. Well, it's definitely one of the hardest things for me. It's like, okay, we got an election, it's over, and then we're right back on the campaign trail, both sides.
How many emails do you get? I get 10 a day asking me for money.
Yeah, and text messages still.
Yeah. And it's ludicrous. It really is. And the whole concept of money in politics is just ruined us. The whole thing, and what's in the news today? Elon Musk says, I got $100 million I'm going to give you, for doing a Tesla commercial yesterday. Okay, I'm sorry, but it's just the money, it's the power. It was never intended for people to go to Washington and be there for 40 years.
And I think a lot of younger people, they see that and they're like, geez, some of these people have been
you got
there for 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
It's like...
And it's wrong. I'm not a believer I don't believe in term limits, but, I understand people that want them. I'm one that says vote them out.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. It's
vote
the power in a vote.
But again, it's hard to do because again, once they get elected, they've got all this PAC money coming in, this dark money. Who the heck knows where it's coming from?
I should have brought my tinfoil.
No, it's just on both sides. Let's face it.
I get it.
Kamala Harris raised $1 billion with a B dollars in how many days? She had like 107 days of a campaign and she had $1 billion. But you know what really pissed me off? Right next door to your place here, we had our office and we had to spend $9,000 of our own dollars from Manistee County to buy yard signs for her. And she had $1 billion in the bank already.
Yeah, that shit's wild.
That's just, and that's why we've got new leadership at the national level, new leadership at the state level in the party mechanics.
Sure.
Okay. But, shame on the Democratic Party for us having to do that. And even with that, we didn't have yard signs until, the middle of September.
Yeah.
This is, it just ticks us off here locally. But that doesn't stop us from organizing locally, focusing on things that are important to Manistee County residents. And that's I think, the most important thing. When you talk about what's it mean to be a Democrat in Manistee County, first of all, we have empathy. We care about other people. We care about the people around us. And we did a survey. It's not a scientific survey, but we had over 400 people respond. What are the most important issues? The top 3. You care to guess, Jim? What do you think the first one is? I'm putting you on the spot right now.
I don't know. I really don't know.
Okay. First of all, before I start, you got to look at the demographic of who responded. Look at the demographics. We had 400 respondents. 75% of those, 300 of them, were above the age of 65. Okay? What do you think the most important thing is? Cost-effective rural health care.
Yeah.
But by the same token, you look at some of the younger respondents, and that's important to them too. Maybe not as important as some of the others. There were a choice of 13 items, 13 issues. But why is it important? Because young women, if you're going to have a baby in Manistee County, you got to go to Ludington, you got to go to Cadillac, you got to go to up to Traverse.
Mm-hmm.
This is part of the challenge we have. Healthcare is number 1. Number 2, affordable housing. Terrible problem in this county right now. Our industry is having trouble getting young engineers to move here because they can't find a place to live that they can afford. And they've got a good job. They're getting paid well. But, that's part of the challenge. But it's also important to the 65 and over demographic because they're living in homes that they'd like to be able to sell.
Sure.
And maybe move to an apartment somewhere, maybe, some kind of assisted living, maybe not full assisted, like Green Acres or something, but they can't afford that. Okay, they don't want to take out another mortgage because they go from a 3% mortgage to a 70% mortgage, and so you've got, affordable health care, you've got affordable housing, and affordable child care.
Affordable child care is definitely a huge issue here too. But the not being able to have a child here that hurts. And at first, when it happened, when they got rid of, we had our youngest, our 9-year-old now, there at Munson, and it was just a phenomenal experience. The nurses were great, the facility was great. I mean, it was one of the best. So many people have told me that that OB is one of the best in the state.
Yeah.
In comparison to, and it's and then when it happened, I'm like, is it really that big of a deal? And the more and more I thought about it, the more and more my wife talked to me about it. She's like, who wants to move here and raise a family if you have to all of a sudden pack up and drive to Ludington or Traverse or Grand Rapids or Cadillac to have a baby?
And then you think about the aging population.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in the hospital up in Traverse, and your spouse wants to come up and see you, and she doesn't drive or he doesn't drive anymore, how do they get there? How do they come to visit?
My son, he volunteers at the senior center, and he would play chess with these guys, and he made friendships with, guys that were in their 70s and 80s. And actually, to your point, he drove, a guy called him and said, hey, listen, I've got to have a colonoscopy. Can you drive me and pick me up? Because I don't have anybody to do that. And my son was like, yeah, I'll do that.
But you mentioned this local hospital. I can't say enough either. I have all my work done here whenever possible. Okay, I had a colonoscopy in January. Beautiful experience.
Those are fun.
But I've also had my hip replaced and my knee replaced here. And I can't say enough about the quality of care.
No, I think people that don't doctor there don't really know. I mean, my dad had to have he's got bladder cancer, and he had a couple of surgeries up there. And each time that I was there, I'm like, this is, for this bad thing that you have to have done, the care, the nurses, the doctors, everybody was just like. So I came home and I'm like, hey, it's pretty nice out there.
But the challenge is you got a corporate organization that's looking at this and saying it's just not efficient, and so you can cut that out and we'll just it's not that far to Ludington, Cadillac, or Traverse City. It's not that far, but it can be a huge gap to overcome. I
can see it getting stressed too, because we're bringing more people into the community, but by way of some of the, if you see on a smaller scale, like a Culver's opening up, and then now there's talk of the Starbucks coming to town. I know that they're not huge businesses, but there's a reason why they're coming. Yeah. The people are driving through here. The more people that come through here, the more people are going to be using the hospital.
And the good news is the other thing, they're moving dirt to put the apartment complex in where the old school is out in Parkdale. And they're also, they've got another apartments going in, large apartments. It's going to be like 400 plus units. It's also going to be in Manistee Township. And this is exciting because this is exactly what we need. We need those kind of facilities for people to want to get rid of or leave their house that's too big for them now. And it's also important as a starter for people to move here and get established and, have a place to live that they can afford. And so I'm very excited about that movement. I think that's great. But, those are the important things for Manistee County. And the other good thing about it is I think Manistee County, we're watching our elected officials, and they're doing a good job. I want to go on record right now and saying, yes, our county commissioners, for example, it's 6-1. 6 Republican, 1 Democrat, but they are working together. You want to talk about, you want the parties to talk and work together. They're doing a great job. They're not being stupid. They're not doing things like Ottawa County did, down there.
Yeah.
They're not doing things like Grand Traverse had problems with. These guys they're working for the greater good. And as long as they do that, that's fantastic. Okay? Would I like to see more people in there with a D after their name? Hey. Yeah, but that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that they're working for the greater good. And I think we see the same thing happening, throughout the county. I don't think we've got anybody in an elected position that is out for power and to remain on the throne, or however they define their throne. Sometimes it can be a township supervisor, who has been there for. My father-in-law was a township trustee for over 40 years. Okay, but he'd pray towards the end. He said, "I wish somebody would run against me. I'd love to give this up." But he worked for the greater good, even though he had an R after his name. But it doesn't matter what's after your name as long as you're working for the greater good of all the people, in my opinion.
That's a good opinion to have. I got a question. Nate Markham.
Oh, yeah.
I actually reached out to him and said, "Hey, do you have a question for John? He's coming on the podcast." And you might have already touched on a little bit of this.
I know Nate very well, and I'll tell you what, Nate had a great campaign running for county commission. He did a great job. I think he got beat by 84 votes, but again, very proud of the work he did.
What did he say here? He said, ask him if he thinks people in rural communities should focus more on local politics or national politics.
Oh, God, yes. Oh, God, yes. I would love it if you could just tune out, what's on the 24-hour news channels. Because all it does is create stress. Because there's very little we can do about it. You probably are seeing now, there's a lot of people making phone calls, emails, letters, protesting. And that's all well and good. We need to let people know that we're not happy. If something is not going the way that you feel it should, you have the right as an American citizen under the First Amendment to protest peacefully. And we need to continue to do that. But it's got to be focused local. You got to have a good solid base here. And I think that's, over the last 40 years, the Republicans have done a good job of that. It's enabled them to gerrymander in states, for their benefit, so they create safe districts at the state level and at the national level. Got to give them credit. They did the hard work up front, and somehow I think the Democrats were, we just lost focus. And
so to speak to that,
yeah.
I think Nate will be okay with me doing this. He did post it on Facebook, and I wanted to bring this up because I thought it was very interesting, and I tend to agree with him here. He said, and I'm going to read this complete quote here, I think the Democrats are doing something wrong that nobody is talking about. They need to frame things in terms of self-interest, not compassion. The problem with Democratic politics is that it is sold using sympathy. Democratic policies are indeed in the working and poor people's best interest, but Dems constantly say they love democracy because it helps others. Democracy needs to be framed in terms of self-interest. As long as the democracy is framed as something you do for someone else, it'll never be successful in America again.
Yeah, I admire it. I saw that post, and I don't want you to take me wrong. When I say that I'm a Democrat because I care about other people, it's not sympathy. There's a difference between sympathy and empathy. Okay? Sympathy is, I'm sorry that you feel this way. Yeah. Best of luck. Pat on the back. You're out. Empathy is, I understand your pain. Clinton, Bill Clinton, I feel your pain.
Yeah.
Okay?
A great orator.
Yeah.
Clinton.
But I feel your pain. I want to do something to help you. Okay? I want your situation to improve. Okay? The challenge we have is that definition of improving your situation is so different for everybody.
Right.
Okay? We can't possibly make everybody happy. But you've got to take a stand. You've got to say, this is the greater good. This is the compromise. You have to have compromise. It isn't always win-lose.
Compromise is the word.
Yeah. Win-win. In sales, it was always win-win. Okay? I had people working for me that were win-lose driven people. You got to win at all costs. And they did not succeed. They did not sustain. They eventually failed. And I think that we're going to see that is going to eventually cause failure. So being able to communicate across the aisle, being able to collaborate, and being able to compromise are the 3 C's of success, in legislating in our representative type of government that we have at all levels. And that's the important aspect of it. So the challenge is I wish we'd have thought about Make America Great first. Just having a catchphrase, right? Having that catchphrase. It's very difficult to come up with something catchy that says, this is it. And that's the challenge. I think we're stuck with, we care about people. We care about the future of our planet. We believe in social justice, economic justice, and environmental justice. If I could just boil it down to those 3 things, what does a Democrat stand for? Social justice, economic justice, and environmental justice. Those are the 3 things that I'm, passionate about. It could be different for somebody else, I'm sorry, but bottom line is, I guess that's one of the things about being a Democrat, too, is, it's a big tent. It's a big tent, but you can get distracted. Okay? You can get, you go off, and then that can be used against you. Okay? And it was pretty effectively done against Kamala Harris. In what I thought was just a terrible series of ads about, her work with trans people. That taken out of context quote that, that video that they used. But bottom line is, what you're doing there is you're just taking this whole diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, wokeness, that whole thing is just being used as as a cudgel against, the people that give a shit about other people. Okay? And I'm sorry, but, I don't use the term DEI. I use diversity, equity, inclusion because think about that. It's just like woke. I'm happy to be woke. I'm because I care about other people. And I think we have to do that. I had a successful professional career caring about other people. I think we can have successful political people running our government who care about other people. Okay? And don't get me wrong, Jim, and especially in our federal government, there's waste there that needs to be cut out. We're wasting taxpayer dollars on things that are not important.
Yeah, and I think every taxpayer, no matter what team you pick, is 100% on board.
Don't get me wrong,
yeah.
But the way it's being handled right now in Washington is wrong. The chaos, the revenge, the retribution, go fast and break things, move fast and break things. in business that might work. Well, what we're breaking right now, we're putting people at risk of their lives, of their well-being. And that's just wrong. But do we need to improve the efficiency of our government? Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, yeah, we need to improve all of that. But so to kind of dovetail on that, and to go back to what I said earlier about how I feel like we're in a constant election cycle, where do you see the Democrat Party? Who do you think in this early stage of the second Trump administration, who are you guys going to prop up? Because if I have to give my opinion on this really quick, it needs to be somebody who, and it sounds so obvious and so trivial, but I think sometimes the picks on either side, it needs to be somebody who can articulate, male or female, need to be statesman, stateswoman. They need to be somebody that you look at and you say, that's a president.
Yeah.
That's a president right there. That's somebody that, we can all follow. And when I look at what's out there right now, I'm like, I don't have a pick on either side.
I don't think we had a pick when Barack Obama popped up. Honestly, we had, that was when Hillary Clinton was told, next time, Hillary.
Yeah.
Okay, but you're looking for somebody like that, I assume. Somebody along those lines that, has the charisma.
Like pick somebody who's got charisma, pick somebody who can articulate, pick somebody who has a firm understanding of not only, our government, but world politics. And, people get all this stuff twisted with other countries and presidents and dictators and whatever, but we do need a great communicator again.
Right.
We need somebody who can say to another country's leader, we're gonna do this together.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I agree with you. I don't think there's anybody right now that's saying, oh yeah, there it is. I honestly felt, personally felt that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz would have been a great team. They really, I felt she was a president, that I could look up to. The challenge is going to be in the future, something you may not know is I am the chair of the 2nd Congressional District Committee in the state of Michigan.
I did not know that.
And so my job is to find a candidate to run against the current incumbent U.S. representative for the 2nd Congressional District. And so people are asking me, what are you looking for? I said, well, I'm looking for someone that's smart, charismatic, and under the age of 50. Okay? That's what I'm looking for. And we need to find somebody like that. I'd like to find a Jasmine Crockett type person. I'd like, somebody like Jamie Raskin. I'd love to find a young Jamie Raskin out there. Somebody, we've got some good people, but they don't necessarily in the state of Michigan. We've got a deep bench on the Democratic side. You're going to find as we go in the governor's race and all this, and we're probably going to eat our young a little bit. With you got Jocelyn Benson, Garland Gilchrist just throwing his hat in the ring. Both of them are just outstanding candidates. But I don't have anybody right now that I know that's living in the 2nd Congressional District. But there's somebody out there. There's somebody there. We're going to find them. We need to find them quick though, because again, every 2 years, they're elected, they're sworn in, and then their campaign committee is working. And I think that's just wrong. I wish we'd go to a 4-year minimum of our U.S. rep.
Yeah, the 2-year thing is always kind of like, that's immediate, we got to try to get reelected.
Yeah. Exactly. And
so,
but I think that, there is nobody right now that I can say, yeah, here's the standard bearer. Somebody, we'll find somebody, it'll be good. I hope we find a great candidate. But right now, I'm more focused on what's going on, 2nd Congressional District, Manistee County, those kind of things. So.
One more thing before we call it, that I wasn't 100% sure. I should ask, and if you don't feel comfortable, we can cut this out of here. But it has to do with both parties. And so I have very dear friends and family that are Republican, and I have very dear friends and family that are Democrat. And I have, who I would say, like 2 super close friends that are Republican, and one is Democrat. And so when I look at, again, I'm just a regular dude trying to figure all this stuff out. And I know that there is wild shit with both parties. But when I feel like a lot of times, in particular the Republican side, gets blanketed as more times than I care to even bring up. Whenever I get caught up in a political discussion and there's multiple viewpoints, right, from both sides, it always goes towards racist, misogynist, like they don't really care about the LGBTQ plus community, Republican. That's what the Republicans get, or anybody that says that they're on Team Trump or whatever. Now, I will also say that I've had conversations with local GOP members, high-ranking, that say, we're trying to speak to local and how local is working together, like you were saying, we're trying to fix this problem that they perceive with the super, air quotes for people that are just listening, MAGA, right? Like they're conservative, true and true, but the whole like MAGA thing is what they're trying to, maybe dial back on a little bit. But I think it's an unfair painting of somebody who's a conservative just to lump them all into a category that says you're racist, you're a misogynist, you don't like the LGBTQ plus community. Yep. And I get all like hot and like my chest starts to hurt when somebody says something like that, and I'm like, I don't think you can say that about a category that put Trump in the office. I don't think it's everybody. And I don't think it's like in my honest opinion, with the people that I know, I don't think it's even like a very big percentage. I think they're just super passionate about these particular things, and the other things are just kind of what is lumped in because this is who we're voting for. Sure.
So let me ask you this question. You mentioned what people are saying about the MAGA folks. What do they say about the Democrats? What do you hear about? How do you categorize a Democrat?
See, that's funny because I don't. I think what I hear or what I see is that it's a little too loose on this side with topics, policies, or whatever, and then the conservative side, hence the name, wants to reel a bunch of stuff in. Again, I have voted both Republican and Democrat throughout my life, so it's when I say I don't pick a side, I'm literally not picking a side because sometimes I'm like, Jesus Christ, I'm not going to do any of it. Screw you people, I'm done. I'm not going to vote this time or whatever. Like I can't handle it. And because I love, and this is because I genuinely, I'm going to try not to get emotional, I genuinely love people. And I've evolved immensely over the years, and I don't want to be like, go F yourself because you voted for that person, or you don't agree with what I'm trying to say, so I'm done with you. I can't do that. Like you said, we got to have more of a, we can agree to disagree.
Yeah. So it goes back to this, what I said earlier about having curious conversations. Okay, and that's what I would always say. I tell everybody that I come in contact with that calls himself a Democrat, don't disparage other people. Don't call somebody a name because they didn't vote the way you thought they should. Ask the question. Tell me more about that decision you made. Because I'm curious, and I honestly want to know. And if you don't honestly want to know, then just don't have the conversation, but do not, go down into the dirt and, call them names and call them stupid, this is not good for anybody. This is not the way we should be working with each other. We're all Americans. We all live in Michigan. We all live in Manistee County. We should be, working together to make this the best county in the state, and make this state the best state in America, and make America the best country in the world. The challenge is on the other side too, and I've been called a baby killer.
Yeah.
I've been called a communist. Okay? I've been called, that I defund the police. These are all things. And again, and I understand on the other side, those names are used, and I abhor that. So all I'm saying is we don't need to, be out in the playground throwing rocks at each other. We need to be out in the playground trying to figure out how to put the best team together, to win. And, some people are going to be really good. I was an offensive lineman. Some people are really good at moving other people around. Some people are good at running fast. Some people are good at throwing a ball. Some people are good at catching it. But it all comes together to make the best possible team. And that's what we're looking for. That's what, when we talk about our government, local, state, national, that's what we're talking about. We want the best possible people on the field. And you vote, like you've said, you should vote for the best person. You should vote for the person that you feel will best represent you in that role. You don't vote for them because they got an R or a D by their name. And that's, my feeling. Okay? I think, too, locally, one of the things I agree. We don't see the MAGA stuff outright, but I would like to see our local Republican leadership standing up and saying, what's going on is not right. I don't believe this is the right thing to do. And I think to have the courage to do that is important. I will say I think that Democrats will stand up and do that. We are constantly, bickering amongst ourselves and standing up and saying, no, that's not right. And sometimes, it creates, a bad situation, but I think in the long term, it's for the best. So that's where I'm standing. That's my stand on it.
This is why I feel so blessed to be able to do this. And I've said it multiple times on the podcast that, my sole reason or desire to do this is because I get to talk to interesting people and hopefully glean some knowledge, change a viewpoint, or just grow more as a human. And I do pick and choose a little bit. Mm-hmm. I know I get a lot of requests, and sometimes I'm like, I just don't feel like that would be a good conversation for me right now. But a conversation like this, it was a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you.
And like I said, I don't typically do as much research as I did for this, but I knew that there was more to the story, and I'm glad that we got to touch on a little bit of your history and your kind of evolution through this crazy thing we call life.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your candor. And full disclosure, I have reached out to the GOP to have somebody come on. I think we're kind of being ghosted a little bit. But I shouldn't have said that. There are people working on putting something together so that it would be somewhat of a counterpoint to this conversation. But, and I keep telling myself, because, some years ago when Lee Trucks was very instrumental in helping me get some candidates on the podcast.
Yep.
And, I said to myself after that, I'm like, man, I don't know if I want to go through that again. But I'm glad I had this conversation today. I'm glad you said something to me at the coffee shop, and I'm glad we can make it happen. And I wish nothing but the best for you as you continue on, sir.
Absolutely, Jim. Thank you. This is great. Really appreciate the fact that you're doing this for this community. And again, with everything else that's out there, the internet, I think, can be a very positive resource. But we just need more folks like you that are willing to,
not read the comments.
Yeah.
YouTube can be a scary place sometimes.
Amen, brother. All right. Thank you
so much.
Thank you.